Yeah, it is 6:30. We'll give you a little bit more time just for a few extras. There's normally a bit more of a last-minute rush around 6:30 people join in, so we'll give people a few more minutes to come in. Okay, just to keep fairly to time, I think we'll make a start. So welcome to everybody joining this evening to the regional and national programme development session, being led by Bob Smith and Piers Copeland on championship racing. So for those of you who don't know Bob and Piers are on our Commonwealth Games or Welsh Commonwealth Games programme at the moment, aiming for Birmingham 2022. They've got a long coaching partnership, which has brought some success, especially in championship races. So for those of you who don't know Piers, he is the silver medalist at the last European Under-23 champs, and most recently he was 5th at the European Indoor champs as well. So both of them bring quite a wealth of experience in championship racing. So hopefully there'll be time for some questions at the end of the presentation. So if you can make sure you put your questions in the questions drop down on your dashboard, and we'll try and get through as many questions as possible. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Bob and Piers, who will take you through the rest of the session.
Okay, thank you very much, Liz. If I could actually tell you a little bit of a secret, in that I spoke to Piers earlier today, and I said that if we got less than 5 questions, he could have an easy session. So guys, don't let me down. Let's have a load of questions at the actual end, even if you just want to ask Piers, what do you have for breakfast? Okay, now what I like to do is I like to really talk firstly about Piers's abilities. Now, when you actually look at his performance at an under 15, he did just under 4:30, but he's actually been able to progress, and so that at an under 23, he has been one of the best 1500 meters runners actually in Europe. Now, this kind of progress isn't different from others. If you look at Jake Whiteman, who is the UK's best 1500 meter runner at the moment, he couldn't get under 4:30 as an under 15, but it didn't turn out too badly for him. But there again, Josh Kerr, who is most probably the second best 1500 meter runner in the UK, he was a national champion from under 15 actually onwards. So there's never really a right route, and so that if you've got fantastic abilities as young, it doesn't mean it's going to translate in to senior athletics and vice versa. One thing about Piers and how he has been able to progress is that he actually does work very hard with his training. Now, I've been with him for about 8 or 9 years now, and he's never ever ducked a hard session. He's told me that he's not looking forward to it, but he's never ducked it. That doesn't mean that we always actually go to the session plan. If he says he's got a bit of a niggle or a bit of a stiffness, we actually change things around. Piers is a minimalist. He only does what is necessary. He has never ever asked me on a track session if he can do another set of reps or anything. If he's got 16k down, he will do 16k. He won't do 20k because his mate's actually doing 20 on it. Now, through his development process, we've actually used what's called the Daniel method. Now, the Daniel method is very focused on actual pacing, and now Piers has got a phenomenal pacing ability that if I give him a pace to run a session on the track, he will actually do it within about half a second. Now, that has also been translated into his racing, and if we actually said, can you do a 61st lap, he will do a 61st lap. If you see Piers when he is actually racing, he is very confident in his own ability. if the guys are going too quickly, he will hang off the back. He has no problems actually with that. He doesn't want to think, oh, I'm the best one in the race, I've got to be in the first 3. He won't actually do that. And also, what we've actually done is we've actually managed his ability actually through the age groups. We haven't actually loaded Piers so that he can get to a championships or anything of that nature. The most important thing is the building blocks are right for a senior athletics. It's all about seniors. It's not about under 20s, under 17s, or under 15s. But we've now got robust building blocks actually in place that are now reaping benefits. Now, we've got to accept that everyone is actually different. Now, I think in the coming years, Wales is in a fantastic place for 1500 metre runners. We've got Piers and we've also got Jake Hayward. Now, they are 2 totally different athletes and have had different paths, development paths through their athletics career. If you look at Jake Hayward, he is very much an aerobic kind of runner, where Piers is very much anaerobic on the actual kind of the faster side. The things I actually say about Piers, you may look at and say, well, that may not suit me. There's no problem at all with that. Now, when we're looking at types of races, there are basically 2 types of races. The first one, which I think everybody is aware of, and that's what they call a gun to tape, and that's even pace through the race. And that's where you get your PBs, and that's normally the BMC, Diamond Leagues, and things of that nature. And you normally have a pacer. A pacer is set to do a certain tempo, and they actually, you manage to actually get a good time at the end of the day. The other thing is, the other race is the fast finishing. Now, most championship races will start slowly, and there will be a slower finishing time. It's norm, especially with 1500 meters. There's a massive rush on the last lap of who can actually run faster. So if you look at the athletes in the UK, if you look at somebody like Mo Farah, he could actually he could finish very fast. But he wasn't actually very good at gun to tape. He never did a world record of 5,000 or 10,000, although he was thought to be one of the actual best 5 or 10,000 meter runners. If you look at somebody like Paula Radcliffe, she was actually excellent at gun to tape. She could go off at a certain tempo and she could actually kind of maintain it. But when she got to the championship races and she was against the Kenyans and it was a fast finish, she didn't actually do too well in the races. So which is best? Unfortunately, athletes have got to be good at both. And because for a championship, you must probably have a time to actually achieve before you can get actually onto the start line and be selected. Now, if you look at the Euros, the under-20 Euros, there was a very nice guy, Josh Lay, who went into the race with a 3:41 best time. He came 3rd in 3:56, so that was 15 seconds slower. Now, when you look at the last Olympics, we had Centrovitz, the American. I think he wasn't even in the top 20 of the fastest time, but he won by doing a very, very fast lap. Piers, I can't remember what time does Centrovitz do at the end of his race?
Centro's last lap was around a 50.5, which I think makes it one of the quickest last laps of a 1500 meter major final ever.
Yeah, I think that just actually does it. It was saying that what is best, being 20th in the world or winning an Olympic title. I would suggest it would be getting winning the Olympic title. Now, developing a fast finish, this doesn't happen naturally. You've actually got to work on it. Now, this is what they call a speed line, and this is actual Piers' speed line, which I'm going to share with you. Now, it's a bit odd because the x-axis is something called meters per second. Now, that's something that we don't normally use in the athletic world, but if you look at 100 meters that's done in 10 seconds, that's 10 meters per second. And if you look right at the other end of the scale with 4 meters per second, that's around about 4 minutes 10 per per kilometre. So really, the peers would actually run different training sessions at any speed along his actual speed line. Now, when you actually look at it, when you look at his lactate turning point, he can run there for about an hour. When he gets to his 3000 line, he can only do that for 8 minutes, and then it goes down quite drastically. 800, he can only do that for 146. At 400, he can only do it for maybe about 48 seconds. 200, it goes down 21 seconds. His maximum speed, he can only hold for 3 seconds. So the line goes down quite drastically. And this is what they call the anaerobic speed reserve. And all distance runners need quite a large speed reserve. If you've got a very, very small speed reserve, you're a marathon runner. If you've got a massive speed reserve, you're a sprinter, just because this Vo2 Max is way down this end on it, because they just can't run any distance. Now, what actually determines this anaerobic speed reserve is this thing right at the end called max speed. Now, max speed is a function of your biomechanics and the amount of power you can actually insert onto the ground. Now, for Piers, I never really allow him to get into max speed just because of injury risk, but he does have to do S&C and drills, and that would actually improve his biomechanics. To be realistic, Piers would never really in training go faster than his 400-meter speed, but he would only go at that speed for maybe 200 meters. But that does actually affect this whole range. So Piers would work here, which is his Vo2 max, and then here all the way in this region of within his anaerobic speed reserve. Oh, just to mention, the bottom thing is the zones. Hopefully everyone has seen Dan Nash's excellent presentation on zones, but when you do the speed line, it is very, very evident that the anaerobic speed reserve, which is zone 6, is the largest actual zone that we've actually got. Now, what are the typical sessions that actually Piers does? Well, he does quite a bit of Vo2 Max sessions, and what that means is that he's actually got to run at a level where his cardiovascular system is actually at its maximum. And for Piers, that's 63, 64 second laps. So he would do his 800s in about 2628. Now he can do, if I asked him to do it, he could do those at under 2 minutes, and he would still walk off the track quite happily. But that's not the point of the session. It is actually just trying to work the cardiovascular system. Then there's the speed workouts, where he would work at 1500 meter speed, and maybe with his 200s approach that 400 meters kind of level. And then there's the mix session, where he would start at his 3000 pace, which is 64 second laps, at his 600 meters, and then he would, for his 400 meters, he would actually go down to 1500 meter speed, and for the 200s he would be at his 800 meter speed. So so he's getting kind of quicker. Now, Piers, do you want to say anything about those sessions, because they're all so easy, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely not. I think it's important when you go into a session to have the right mindset about what you want to achieve from the session. So, for example, if we take the Vo2 session, when I go into that, I know that I need to try and be consistent and stick to the times that I'm set, because I know that's what I need to do to improve my Vo2 and be stronger in those longer races and those quicker races. And then if we take the mix session, for example, I quite enjoy these because I start out at my Vo2 sort of 3K pace, and I can get quicker throughout. And when I get to the 200s at the end, I'm usually quite tired. And by doing those 200s, probably at somewhere between 400 and 800 meter pace, it makes me run quick when I'm tired. And that's something I find quite useful, especially when I'm running in a championship race, or even in a race where I'm going for a PB, so a Diamond League or a BMC or something. I can really find that extra little bit in the last 200-300 meters of the race when I'm tired, knackered, and got nothing left. I find I can just pick myself up a little bit and just bring it home.
Okay, thanks a lot, Piers. Right, okay. Right, so let's think about when Piers actually starts racing and how he actually handles the race. He plans every race, and this is really important for all athletes. You've got to actually plan the race, and if possible, you've got to know the competition. Now, some coaches say don't overthink the plan, and I would totally agree, but you've got to think. So you go to a race and you're thinking about, is it going to be a fast start, slow start? Am I going to try to do a hard third lap? Am I going to really try to motor on the last 100 meters? Whatever actually it is. We are very lucky about knowing the competition, because we've got power of 10, and we can even get power of 10 onto our smartphones. And so even if we don't know the competition is until we actually, an hour before the race, we can quickly look them up, and we have an idea of what their abilities actually are. With all races, you've got to be confident, but you've got to be realistic. There's no point if you're going to do, let's say, a 4:30, 1500 meters, and you know that's going to be 72-second laps as an average. There's no point in doing kind of 68, because if you do 68, you're going to fall off the cliff at the end. So be realistic about what you're actually kind of doing. And it's always better to actually have a faster finish than actually have a fast start and then die. Something that Piers is actually good is handling adrenaline. On my example of, let's say, the 4:30, 1500 meter runner who does 72-second laps. Now, when they go on to the actual track and do the training track and do a 72-second lap, it feels pretty hard. When you're racing, it feels so easy. So you've got to actually know about that and handle it properly. Also, it is really important to handle nerves. Even now, Piers is nervous every time he races. That is actually without doubt on it. Even though, and how he handles those nerves is he has a plan, and he is just going through a process. So he knows what he's actually kind of doing, and that actually helps him with his nervousness. When you're actually racing, you've got to always expect the competitors to do the unexpected, either starting fast, starting slowly, or whatever it is. And so there's no point in just having one plan. You may have to have a plan A and a plan B, so that you can actually kind of cope with the varying speeds. And we've got to accept that that everyone has a bad day. Sometimes you're doing your best and the result isn't what you expected, but you just got to accept it. And I've always actually said that there are no bad races. We just learn from it. And we've got to really think about, why was it a bad race? Is there anything we can do? If we don't think there's anything we do, don't worry, forget about it. And everyone should actually talk to their coach before and actually after the race about tactics. It is actually most important. Even though, as I say, I've been with Piers 8 or 9 years, we still talk about tactics prior to the race, and then after the race, after it's actually worn down, we have a little bit of a chat. What were the good things? What were the bad things? Where do you think that you were left wanting? So we can actually sort that actually out from there. Right, now I'm just going to quickly go through the year 2019. Piers actually started the year, and his main intention was to get to the under-23 Euro Championships in Sweden, and he knew he had to do 3:41 for that. So he had quite a successful winter, but it could have been a little bit better. It was one of those years where he nearly did things, but he didn't quite crack it. And the first race we had was at the Loughborough International, and things didn't actually go too well, to be honest. In that there was a very, very big field. There was about 16 runners. Piers was in lane 3 on the start line. They came all in front of him. He got badly spiked after about 15 meters, and then from then on, it actually got worse and worse and worse. Piers knows that if he has an easy 800, he's got to really attack the third lap. 59 isn't attacking, and when he went with a lap to go, I think he was 5th or 6th. So that, which for Piers, that isn't actually good enough. And then what he actually did on the last 100 meters, he was catching Adam Clark, the leader, but he was just actually too far ahead. But even though that was a PB at the time, there were some very, very good signs. He walked off or limped off with his as he'd been spiked, but he didn't know there was plenty more in the tank, which was the good thing. So as I say, had a bad day. Okay, let's move on. Let's forget about it. He then went to Germany, and he did a counter taper race, and he did 3:39, and so he had the qualifying for the Euros, which was one of the main purposes of the actual kind of the season. So he then had to go to the national champs in Bedford, and he had to get into the first 2. And in heats for national championships, what they would actually do is they would normally want 12 runners in the final. So what they would actually say, it is a number of runners across the finishing line, and then some fastest losers. And you hear a kind of a shorthand saying, if he's here, it's 4 and 4. It's the first 4 plus 4 fastest losers. I can't remember, Piers, was it 4 and 4 at Bedford? I can't remember now.
Yes, it was. There was 2 heats, so it was 4 and 4.
Right, okay. Piers was actually in the second heat, and Jake Hayward had the first heat, and he actually slowed it down, and it was about, I think it's about 3:53 that he won that actually in. So the guys in the second heat thought, wow, we can make this if we make it a little bit faster. And a guy called Adam Fogg from Coventry actually just took the bull by the horns and just went out and led it. So the second heat was a lot faster. Piers was actually in control all the way. As you can see, there was differential on his third lap. He was starting to push on this third lap. And then on the final straight, Archie Davis overtook him, and Piers said, well, that's okay, because he knew he was kind of qualified. And that was one of those things. In a heat, it does not matter about what position you finish, as long as you qualify. So that's it. So next day, Piers had to do the final, and we looked at the competition, and we realised that it was going to be Jake Hayward was going to be the main contender, but Jake has had a real problem of a year. He had a lot of injury problems, and his coach James Thede did a phenomenal job just to get him on the start line. But we still knew that Jake was the one that would be the main competitor. There was also a guy called Archie Davis, but we thought he was being an outsider. Now with Jake, how Jake always seems to actually run, he likes to get in the front and likes to control it and then slow it down. And so what we actually said, the actual race tactics were, just let him do that. Make sure that you're in the first 3 at the bell, and then just blast them on the last lap. So we went to plan, and then Piers started to motor on the third lap, and then he had a bit of a mistake. He got straight into the lead, which wasn't really the main purpose actually of it. But it did show really that he was a lot stronger than the other athletes. So then at the bell, he actually started letting people go past him on the actual back straight. And I think it was Adam Fogg and Jake went past him. And then just with 200 to go, Piers just went. And I think he had about a 10-meter lead at the actual end. So job done. He won the national championship. If you look at the time, he did 3:50 there. And you've got to remember that his best at that time was 3:39, so about 11 seconds slower than his personal best. So then we went to Sweden, and I must admit, I looked at the entry list and thought, wow, this is going to be tough. These guys are really, really good. So I said to Piers, look, all you have to do, don't worry about the final. We've got to focus on the heats. There's going to be just the heats we've actually got to sort out. And Piers actually ran a very, very intelligent race. He was always in contention after the first 2 laps. And when he was actually coming down the home straight, he was looking around. he knew he had to be in the first 4 because I think it was a 4-on-4 again, and it was actually very comfortable. So Piers and I then actually had a bit of a discussion in a Swedish coffee bar on the day between the actual 2 races, and it was really just saying, look, Piers, you've got to be in contention with the bell. Yeah, no problem at all. So as we predicted, it started slow. I didn't expect it to start that slow. 70 seconds for Piers, that's around his 5K pace. So, you know, I think, to be honest, he must have warmed up quicker than that. And then it slowly got quicker, and then it got even quicker, and he did just under a 56 lap on his 3rd lap. The thing was that when he went through the bell, he was in 9th place. So how do you think you can actually contend for a medal when you're in 9th place to the bell? I'll let Piers explain this a little bit later on. But then he actually really accelerated, and he did his last 300 in 40 seconds. And it was a very odd race because all the competitors seemed to want to run in lane 2 to 5, and they left the inside track totally open, and Piers just ran them straight away through. Watching, you just can't believe what happened. But when you actually look at the times that actually Piers did, I think on his last 800 he did 1:51 for his last 800. His last 400 was a tad under 54. So even though Piers was running an 800, Piers was running a 1500, he was running virtually at an 800 meter pace, because at that time his best 800 was 1:49 and bits. So Piers, have you got anything to say about Sweden?
Yeah, it's probably one of the worst tactical races I've ever run. I think the final. I think I ran horrendously. Yeah, like Bob said, I was 9th at the bell. I'd basically just sat at the back for the whole race and just switched off. And before I realised it was the bell, and I had to try and make my way through the pack to try and get as close as I could to the front. Yeah, I think I was 7th at 200 meters to go, and I just thought there was no chance for a medal really. But I just kept at it, and like Bob said, got really lucky down the home straight because just everybody drifted wide into lane 2 to 5, and I just managed to run up inside lane 1 and dip in for 2nd place.
Yeah, I think just a kind of a little bit of a secret about this, that after Piers had actually finished, he had a lot of media things to do because he'd actually come 2nd. And then there was a lot of the GB team around him. And then he took me to one side and actually said, I really messed that up, didn't I? I don't think those were his exact words, but I got the gist that that was what he really meant to say. But it wasn't good. But one of those things, he's learned from it, came away with a silver medal, which is good. Being realistic, would he have beaten Fonte even if he'd run tactically well? Not sure. I'm not sure about that. It does actually show the status of that final. I've got a feeling the first 5 finishes were within a second. So we're looking at very, very small margins for winning and losing.
Yeah, I think
now
myself in 2nd and in 5th, I think there was a 1/10 of a second between us 4. So I think it just shows how close it can be at the finish.
Yeah. So for Piers, it was worth all those early mornings of actually getting him to get up and actually do the his double runs when he's thinking there's only a 0.1 of a second between, because if he'd come 5th, it would have still been a very good performance. But there's nothing like coming away with a medal and being on the rostrum. Okay, so after that, Piers was quite tired, and so we decided, well, look, is it worth doing any more 1500s? So the British Championships was at the end of the year, so it was decided to do an 800 meters there, and this was the World Championship qualifying race, so everybody was there, and I've got a feeling Piers on the ranking list was about 30th, so he had no chance of actually qualifying. And I actually, I'm rather honest with Piers. I said, look, you're not going to qualify, just get there, have a PB, then I even told him, don't worry about accommodation for the actual between the Saturday and the Sunday, because I say you're not going to do it. So Piers got drawn in heat 3, which is always a very, very good heat, because you actually can see what is actually happening. First heat went off, and they started going around in 55, 56. And I looked at that and I thought, well, how are they getting there by fast losers? Because these guys were really excellent runners. In the first heat, there was most probably 6 runners that had run under 150, and they didn't do it. Second heat, exactly the same thing happened. And I was talking to some of the coaches in the warm-up area, and I said, I just can't believe what are these guys doing? They know that they've got to run fast to get through, and they're not running fast. Third heat. Okay, they actually realised what was actually happening, and that was one in 148 and 146 on it. So, and then Piers had to go on in his heat 4. Now, as he was the slowest virtually of everyone, he had to start off in lane 8. Now that actually means you've got to go off hard from the start. You can't see anyone. You just got to really go at it, and which he did. I think that by the time he got to 200, Spencer Thomas and Elliot Giles were just a little bit in front of him. But he ran a very good race, and he just kind of maintained his actual form. He was doing 27.8s. Now, when you're looking at a gun to tape race in an 800, it's conventional wisdom that there's a 2-second differential between the first and the second lap. Now, I'm sure your math is a lot quicker, a lot better than mine, but I think he was around about 2 seconds between the first and the second lap. So he got through, which was a major surprise. And so I had to actually apologise to Piers to say, okay, well, you did it, didn't you? So got to the final, and the race plan was saying just do exactly the same as you did in the heat. These guys are so good that they're not going to, you're not going to actually kind of bother them. These guys were 145 guys. So he did exactly the same, and he got 148.1. Now, that afternoon of the 800, in the 800 race, there were 2 PBs done of all the guys that actually raced an 800. And both those PBs were done by Piers. And why was that? Because Piers used his head and realised that he had to go off hard to make the final. If he tried to be tactical, he wouldn't have actually raced on the final day. Do you think that's an accurate description, Piers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in my heat, I think out of the 6 or 7 people in it, I think I was 6th or 7th fastest. So I just knew I had to run as quick as possible and then hope I got one of the fastest loser spots, because I was not going to beat Elliot, Giles or Spencer Thomas in my heat. There was any way I'd ran it, I was not going to beat them. So I just had to give myself the best opportunity of making the final. And I knew to do that, I had to run as fast as I could.
Yeah, good. Right. Okay. Now we just have a summary, because I'm sure you're putting a lot of questions actually onto the system. What I would actually like to say, a fast finish has to be developed. It isn't a given. Nobody can just say that they don't have to develop their finish. There's no athlete in the world that can say that, or that it's just natural. But it's one of those awful facts of life that if you don't have speed, winning a national track championship is low. It doesn't mean you're not going to, but it's not very probable. And with athletics, what we want to do is we want to lower the probabilities so they're actually in our favour. You've always actually got to decide what the best way is to manage the heats. Now that actually may mean actually virtually running a gun to tape race and just seeing if you can get through as the fastest loser. It may mean that if you think you're one of the leading contenders, you don't have to worry, and you can have a fast actually end. One of the things about heats is that you've just got to be economic, and it is all about qualifying. It doesn't matter if it's a 4 and 4. It doesn't matter if you come 4th. Even if the guys that are in front of you always beat, it doesn't matter. But you just got to do it economically, because you've got another race coming up. And you've got to accept the final times in championships, they don't really matter. It's all about places. I think that when you look at Piers's kind of races, his championship races, you know, in that year, you know, he was running 350. And that's 11 or 12 seconds slower than his actual best. But we mustn't actually get too caught up in the power of 10 numbers. Okay, guys, it is over to you. So now you can ask Piers all those questions.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking us through that. So first kind of question to break everybody in, Piers, is what would you say your best race has been and kind of why, really?
I think tactically, so for example, a championship race, I'd say one of my best ones would have been the under-23 championships at Bedford. I think I ran well in the final, and I knew I was in great shape, and I did everything I wanted to do that day, and I managed to get the win. I'd say from a gun to tape point of view, I raced in Switzerland at the end of last summer, and I gave myself a target of trying to run under 3:36. I gave myself splits I needed to do. The race went well that way, and I finished really quickly. I think my last 400 meters that day was a 54.6, 54.8, and I managed to get a PB, and that's probably the best I've felt. So that one. That
was good. Yeah, great stuff. There's a question from Gareth Davis asking you both, how many strength and conditioning sessions do you do a week, and is there a period of sort of the year where you focus on strength?
So at the moment, I am trying to fit in 2 S&C sessions a week. So what I do is I usually do that on a Wednesday and a Sunday, because they're the 2 days I do like my longer / easier runs. So at the moment, I'm doing stuff in the garden, like general core work, like a circuit, some band work as well on areas that I find weaker. So that'll be both my ankles and my tib ants, and then also do some squats, calf raises, and general bar stuff. But in the next couple of weeks, I'll be hopefully moving back into the gym in Nyack, so I can get on a more routine schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Do you tend to drop then, or reduce the S&C going into competition phase? Would you say both, or?
Yeah, I'd say I drop down to once a week. As the season goes along, it becomes less important, as it makes less of a difference during the actual season itself. It's before the season where the work needs to be put in and where it's more important.
Yeah. Good
stuff. I think when you look at Piers's kind of progression, and one of the reasons why he's actually doing kind of so well is the S&C. Piers isn't a natural bodybuilder type of guy, and he knows he's actually got to work at it. But we do know how actually important the S&C actually is. But it is one of those things that it is very easy to skip S&C. But it's one of those things about you do the large things first, but then you've got to start getting the small things right, and we're in that thing. We've got to get the small things right, and one of those things for Piers is S&C.
Yeah, I think also something that's important is if you know you have a specific weakness. So like I have an issue with one of my feet. I think it's important to try and emphasize like what issues you've got, and then try and improve them, to try and like decrease risk of injury, etc. Yeah, also I feel like obviously it's a bit difficult at the moment, but having a group to do your S&C work, I feel is quite useful. I feel like if you can do it as a group, you can encourage each other, and I find it definitely a lot easier. So I do it with my housemates at the moment, which makes it more enjoyable.
Do you still live in a house with other athletes, Piers?
Yeah, I do. I live in a house with 3 others at the moment. So we all run all 800 to 10k athletes. So, but all our S&C is sort of similar, to be fair. So we all do something like rotate and do different things at the same time.
Yeah. So looking at your race day preparation, Piers, what does that kind of look like? How do you prepare from the moment you get up to the moment you sort of get to that start line? Have you got much of a routine, or?
So beforehand, I will, like Bob said, look at my competition, because I like to do that. I like to know like what they've done and what they've done. Say, for example, a 1500, especially if it's a championship race, I like to know what they've done for an 800 meters, so I know if they're a fast finisher or not. So that's like before race day itself. On race day, depends when I'm racing. So for example, at the European Indoors, I was racing at 9:30 at night, so I could have quite an easy, chilled day. So on the Friday, I think I woke up at about 9:30, had my breakfast, went for a light walk just to stretch my legs a bit from the heat the day before, and then have lunch, had a nap in the afternoon, which is normally what I do on a race day. If I race after probably 4 or 5 o'clock, had a snack, 6 o'clock, headed down to the track 6:30, chilled for a bit, normal warm up routine, and then into the corner onto the start line.
Yeah. How do you manage?
If I can just,
no, go on.
So sorry, if I can just add about that. Piers has got a routine for his warm up. It takes about an hour before the call room, and he knows exactly what he's actually going to do that. And it's okay for me, because all I have to say to Piers, whereabouts are you with your warm up? And he'll tell me, oh, he's got another 5 exercises. So all I've got to do is make sure he gets to the call room at the right time. And sometimes I have to say to him, slow down a bit, you know, you're too early, or whatever it is. But it is very much of a routine. And as soon as he gets there into the kind of call up, so into the warm up area, he has his music on, and he's totally blanked out to everyone else. Okay, he doesn't talk to anyone. He never talks to me, as you'd expect. But he is totally focused on the race ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Gareth Davis has got another question. So, how do you plan increasing sort of the volume or mileage over the age groups? How have you done that, Bob? How have you started to gradually increased Piers's volume of training?
I've got this thing that, you see, the thing is, I'm not really a mileage person, because every time Piers puts his shoes on, it's got to be for an actual purpose. Why is he actually kind of training? Why is he actually going out at, I don't know, 350 kilometer speed? So, you know, I know that, let's say that he's had to do doubles. Now, he doesn't do that many doubles even now. He does only maybe 3 or 4 doubles a week. And his first run is not that, you know, it's not that severe, about 6K, something like 6 or 7K on it. So, you know, he isn't a very, very high mileage man. And look at his results. He doesn't actually need it. I think it's different if he was a 3,000, 5,000 guy. Yeah, they do need the mileage, but Piers doesn't need it. I think when we look at Piers, we've got to make sure that he actually recovers properly from his track sessions. That's where the gold is. And if he doesn't recover properly, he's not going to be very, very good at the next one. So, you know, we're quite relaxed about that. And, you know, very recently, when we are looking at very, very hard track sessions, he does them on Monday and Thursday. So he's got 2 days that he can actually kind of recover from on it.
Other than training planning, guys, how else do you recover from sessions, Piers? What's your kind of recovery tools?
So I usually use, after my hard sessions, I have a set of normal techs. So I use them for recovery after the session that evening. I've also got a massage gun, which I find really useful if I've got specific tightness in one of my muscles somewhere. I try and stretch and foam roll twice a week, because I find that because I'm quite tall, I get a lot of tightness in my back and my glutes. And I find that affects my running and my strides, specifically when I'm doing sessions. I find maybe my legs are quite tight and tired. So I just try and keep on top of that, and that helps me perform better. And then I guess I just try and have a varied diet as well. So I don't have, like, I'm not like a vegetarian or something, or pescatarian. I have like a varied diet of everything. So I have quite a lot of milk, which I find is important. So try and get in quite a bit of milk each day, and just have a good diet as well. Helps me recover and get me ready for the next run or session.
How about sleep, Piers? Do you get sleep?
Yeah, I was going to say, Piers is excellent at sleeping.
Yeah.
He can sleep anywhere.
So I try and get 9 hours a night at least. Sometimes I can get up to 11. It just depends how tired I am, or how lazy I can be the next day. So if I've got for example, if I've only got one run the next day, I will probably just not set an alarm. Just whenever I wake up, because I just find it's just better for myself. I just get that more recovery in. Yeah, and then if I have a session day or a double day, I might have a nap in the afternoon. Say if I'm doing a session at 6, I might have one at 2 or 3, just a short half an hour nap, just to make myself feel better for when I do the session.
Yeah, so quite simple recovery strategies there, though, Piers, really.
Yeah, there's nothing fancy about it, really.
No, which is good, because I think, you know, I said people always go for the fancy recovery, and actually, you know, for an elite athlete like yourself, it's the simple things which usually are the most effective. So just Absolutely. a good message there for the youngsters listening in.
I feel like doing the basics right is really important. I feel like if you can master them and do them well, they'll help you in the long run.
Great, yeah. Piers, there's obviously some young athletes listening in who are, well, where you were maybe 7 or 8 years ago. What would be your kind of advice to those young athletes listening in and about their journey going forward?
I think it's really important to enjoy it. I think that's first and foremost the most important thing. I think if you enjoy it, you'll go further, and I think it will make everything you do more enjoyable. What was I say? I think having a plan, I think, is quite important. I think talking to your coach and discussing what you want to do for, say, the next 4 weeks, the next 4 months, and the next potentially even 4 years is important. Then you have a direction of where you want to go, and you can have a plan and set things out. For example, Bob's obviously got a plan for me, what we want to do now for the next 4 weeks and probably for the rest of the season. And I think that's important because you can plan things, and then you also have like a plan B, so you can adjust if things don't go right. And say, for example, if I got an injury, we'd have a plan B, right? Can't run, for example, but can we cycle or do something else? So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. How's your coaching changed over the years with Piers, Bob, or has it been pretty similar, or have you had to change as Piers has gone through the age groups?
I've actually learned a lot from Piers, because when I actually started, you know, when I first met Piers, I was just starting my coaching journey, and to be honest, I didn't really know, you know, one end of the track to another. But I've had to actually had a quite steep learning curve, and I think, you know, I have quite a small training group, and they always actually challenge me with things about why they actually doing things, and I think my opinion of how to actually prepare athletes has actually changed quite a bit. But having said that, ever since Piers was quite young, there was always the objective of a senior athletics, and trying to put the building blocks in place so that he could actually achieve those objectives. And as I said in the presentation, I wasn't too worried about under 20s or under 17s and things like that. And it's just, my thing is just, you know, go out, as Piers says, enjoy it, making mistakes, you know, run different tactics, and, you know, just kind of enjoy the experience.
Mm-hmm. I think that thing around sort of making mistakes and kind of learning from them is really important, especially in championships, because it sounds like things have gone well for you guys on a few occasions, but also you've kind of had the races where it's been difficult as well. So yeah, I think sort of the learning from that, those failures, for want of a better word, is definitely important, rather than dwelling on them. Perhaps I think it's quite easy for young athletes to see a bad race and, you know, to kind of dwell on that and really struggle. Did you have what do you think on that, Piers? What's your thoughts?
I think it doesn't matter if a race goes well or badly. I think as long as you learn from it and you can take something forward to your next race, I think that's really important. You go into a race with a plan, and you execute that plan, whether it comes off or not, as long as you've learned something from it, I think that's the most important thing. You can take that forward and try it again, or do something different in a different race, and try and improve your overall skill set.
Yeah, great stuff. guys, if there are any questions, please pop them in the questions. I think from my perspective, you guys, what are your sort of plans now over the next kind of year, coming years? What are your main goals as a coaching team?
So I think for this season in particular, I think with the Olympics being pushed back a year, it's been definitely played into my favour, because it could be an extra year to prepare and get ready. So I'm only less than half a second off the Olympic standard at the moment. So I think my goal for before the trials would be to try and get that time if I can. I think getting the time or placing top 2 at the trials is what you need to do to make the team. I think the time will be easier, because I think there could be 9-10 people in the final at the championships with the standard, and I think that just goes to show how strong middle distance running is in the UK at the moment, if getting the time is the easy bit of making the team. So I think, yeah, making the team, getting the time, and then preparing myself best I can for the trials at the end of June. That's my aim.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Does that fit with your plans, Bob?
Yeah, that's it. And I think, I'm always actually looking longer term. Piers really does want to do well for Wales in the Commonwealth Games, and that's going to be his main focus in the kind of the next year. I still think this year is going to be a bit stuttery about which races are going to go on. Is the Olympics going to happen and things of that nature. I'm much more confident in Birmingham next year that will actually happen. And Piers has got to be in phenomenal shape by then. So we're looking at as a long-term objective as well.
Yeah, Rian's just popped the question in the question box. Do you wear? She called them the fancy new spikes. So I'm assuming the kind of carbon spikes.
Yes, I have. I presume what the fancy new spikes are. I had the Air Zoom Victories, and I have also the Dragonflies as well. I use the Dragonflies for the indoor season, as I've been training in them for my sessions, and I just felt they felt better to my foot on the indoor surface. But last year I was using the Air Zoom Victories on the outdoor track, which I will probably do again this year as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to be honest, because I really think they're worth about 20 seconds in the 1500. So it's so isn't that true, Piers?
I wish it was, but no. I mean, I don't know if there's a difference, because it's difficult to say when you're always improving. It's difficult to tell you where the time's coming from your training or from these fancy spikes. So yeah, it's difficult to tell, but I wear them anyway because I like them. I feel they feel good on my feet, really, which I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's the comfort as well as the actual performance element as well, isn't it? Okay, I don't think that we've got any more questions come in. So I think we'll start to kind of wrap the session up. So first of all, Bob, Piers, huge thanks from Welsh Athletics for coming along to the session and imparting your thoughts on championship racing. I think some really important messages, especially for developing athletes listening in. We can get a little bit power of 10 and, kind of, as Bob calls it, gun to tape race obsessed. And I think listening to Piers and Bob this evening just shows the importance of in endurance running of learning your craft as well. So learning how to race. As I said, there's lots of information out there around championship racing, a lot of experience within Welsh Athletics. So yeah, I think that's definitely the key message. I think from a developmental point of view is don't get too caught up on times and learn how to race. I think, sorry, one last that's from Alan. He said best session Welsh Athletics have ever done. There we go.
Thank you very much.
Praise indeed. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. Yeah, so no, some really good messages there. So but yeah, thank you both for coming along. This is the last of our development sessions now on the webinars. Fingers crossed, guys, we've actually got some racing coming up. The race calendar's just come out, and for under 18s who are tuning in, we are now able to get back to organised activity. So loads of positives at the moment, and massive light at the end of what's been a really really difficult year. So yeah, thanks for everybody for keeping going over the hard times. But yeah, no, thanks Piers and Bob, and I hope to see you all soon face to face and at an event. And best of luck, Bob and Piers, on your season. And take care, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.